Good evening. Welcome to the May 13th, 2019 special regular meeting. Is it a regular meeting? It's a regular meeting of the Stillwater City Council. I'll call this meeting to order. And we will jump right into the agenda at item 2, hearing to determine whether the structures located at 416 West Maple, Stillwater, Oklahoma, are dilapidated and or abandoned and subject to abatement under 11 OS 22-112 and 11 OS 22-112.4. City Council will vote and may take other action authorized by said statutes at this meeting in regard to the property. Mr. Dorman.
Mr. Mayor, this is a little bit of an abbreviated process. Council for the property owners and the property owners are here. The issue is not so much the removal of the properties, but we do have to put on enough evidence for you to make findings with regard to the status as being dilapidated or abandoned under the statute. So that's what we're basically going to do tonight. Mr. Steve Ruby is here to represent the property owners, and I think he will have some comments for you later. A couple of preliminary items. First, we did verify the ownership of the property per the tax rolls and per the Payne County Clerk as Barrett Property Investments LLC of Athens, Georgia. And in your attached to your proposed order are copies of the return receipts for the certified mail notification that we sent to the property owners at 3 different addresses, 2 in Athens and 1 in Atlanta, Georgia. And those are per the Secretary of State for Oklahoma and or Georgia. We actually checked both rolls looking for registrations. We also did notification pursuant to the Stillwater News Press, and there's a copy of that affidavit attached to the proposed order as well. Basically, we're going to put on the code officer, who probably knows more about this case than anybody, James Moore, and he'll be assisted by City Prosecutor, Deputy City Attorney Dennis McGrath. And so with your indulgence, they have some testimony to provide and also a bit of a slideshow and some photographs to kind of give you a feel for what the nature and extent of the issue is there at that location. And then when you're done, we've got I think Mr. Ruby will have some things he wants to present, and then we can go from there.
Okay, thank you. Gentlemen?
Start with James Moore.
I'm not sure that's on.
I know nothing else about it. We'll tag team.
Just want to make sure the people at home can hear.
I'm Dennis McGrath, Deputy City Attorney. I have James Moore here as the code officer, and we'll just kind of run through these properties with you and show you some pictures as Mr. Dorman described. If you would, state your name.
My name is James Moore.
Working now.
Last time I heard that, I was working undercover, walked in somebody's house and went off. What's your occupation?
I'm a code enforcement officer for the City of Stillwater Police Department.
How long have you had that position?
7.5 years.
And you're here today to talk about a property at 416 West Maple.
That's correct.
And if you could show that picture, can you identify overall what that picture is?
The picture is of all the structures located at 416 West Maple.
And they used to have various addresses for all those properties, correct?
That's correct.
And Maple 400 was the main property, the apartment complex.
Yes, sir.
How did you become aware of this property for the purposes of why we're here today?
In the course of my daily duties, I was conducting a neighborhood survey and observed violations of high weeds and grass.
And you have particular training to fill this position that you're in?
Yes, sir. I have a certification through the Oklahoma Code Enforcement Association.
And did that training also include investigation, identification of dilapidated structures?
Yes, sir.
Also for abandoned structures?
Yes, sir.
And you used that training in this investigation, correct?
Yes, I did.
And looking at the picture, there's how many different structures?
There are 17 structures associated with this address.
And now they all have one address, correct?
That is correct.
That's 416 West Maple.
Yes, sir.
And you identified the owners of that property, correct?
Yes, sir.
And how did you do that?
Verified through the the Payne County Treasurer's Office.
And during the course of your investigation, you had reason to investigate each individual structure?
Yes, sir.
Do you have pictures of those structures?
Yes, I do.
We'll start and kind of go through them chronologically or numerically. What is that picture?
This is, referring to the last slide, this is Building 1, which is multi-unit apartment complex for 416 West Maple.
That used to be known as Maple 400.
Yes, sir, that's correct.
And during the course of your investigation, when did that start?
May of 2016.
And do you know what the city records reflect as far as when that property had the power terminated?
I apologize, that was May of 2017 is when I began my investigation.
Okay. And when were the utilities turned off?
For this particular building, utilities were terminated in between May and August of 2016.
And in the picture, it's boarded up, correct?
Yes, sir.
And when did the boarding up of that particular building take place?
This was done in May of 2017.
So it was boarded up, utilities terminated, nobody living in that building since then.
That's correct.
And if you would go to the next building. And what is that?
This is identified, the last slide is Building 2 of Maple 400.
And do you know when the utilities were terminated for that structure?
The same dates, May through August of 2016,
And what about the boarding up?
May of 2017.
And it's been boarded up since then?
That is correct.
Have you had to have an occasion to have it resecured?
This particular building, no.
And what about the first building?
Yes.
You had to issue orders to have it resecured?
Yes.
How many times
3 times.
for the first building?
Yes, sir.
And when that occurred, did you have an occasion to go into that particular property?
As far as entering the structure itself, on one of the final board ups, I did have occasion to look in to make sure that nobody was inside.
Did you find anybody in there?
I did not.
Did you find indications of anything else going on?
I did find some indications of what appeared to be, the last one appeared to be some copper thefts. I know some pipes and wires that have been taken out, and did find a couple of tools laying around the property.
So the meter was tampered with
Yes.
and wires and copper tubing stolen from the property?
Yes, sir.
Did you have to issue an order to resecure the first or the second building?
Yes, sir. Down the road, I did have to do a order to resecure those buildings.
Okay, go to the next building.
This is Building 3, which is one of the interior buildings of Maple 400.
At the same address?
That's correct, yes.
And when was it vacated?
Sometime between May and August of 2016, according to utilities.
And the utilities were turned off?
Yeah, that's correct.
And did you have to issue an order for this building to be resecured?
I issued it encompassing with the first 2 buildings.
And did you find anything inside during any of those periods, or was it secure?
After the first board up order we did, I did find 3 transients that were squatting inside the building.
And did you make contact with them?
I did.
And did they tell you what they were doing?
They just said they were looking for a place just to kind of hide out and get out of the weather.
And the next building? Is
This-
that another Maple 400?
Yes, it is.
And what did you find with that one?
Just unsecured doors, broken windows, and then eventually down the road, I did find evidence of copper theft.
Do you know when the utilities were terminated there?
Again, between May and August of 2016.
And did you have to issue any follow-up orders to have the building resecured?
Yes, sir, I did.
When, can you identify or tell the council when it was first boarded up?
It would have first been boarded up around the first week of May 2017.
Next building? Another Maple 400?
Yes, sir.
And do you know when the utilities were terminated there?
Between May and August 2016.
And what about the boarding up?
Again, it was the first week of May 2017.
Did you ever find this structure insecure?
Yes, sir, I did.
And what did you do?
Stuck my head in, observed that there was signs of copper theft, and then we issued another board-up order on it.
And when you issue those orders, how did you make notice?
I did it according to state statute where take and post an official notice on the premises itself, and then I send a copy with a certificate of mailing to the property owner as listed with the treasurer's office.
And did they follow up and secure the building?
Yes, sir. The first 2 occasions they did secure the buildings.
And what's the next building?
This is the last building of Maple 400, 416 West Maple.
And same dates of utilities being turned off and being boarded up?
Yes, sir, that's correct.
Anything out of the ordinary in this building?
Just the same as I'd seen with the other buildings.
The wires?
The wires and then, yeah, just unsecured broken windows.
Any indication, or did you find anybody personally that was staying in these?
Just in the third building I'd already mentioned, not in this particular building.
Okay, next one.
And this is
What is that?
evidence of the copper theft.
Which building?
The top left would have been the building 5. The top right was building 1. The bottom left is building 1, and then the bottom right was next to building 6.
And they all reflect wires and meters have been tampered with.
That's correct.
Next. What is that?
This is the swimming pool area of the building. We were kind of concerned about the water and then possible of somebody getting in there. But after investigating, we found the platforms covering it were far too heavy for anybody to move easily.
Was there still water in the pool?
Yes, sir.
And this is, nobody's living at the complex?
That's correct.
Next one. What is that?
This is building 7. It was formerly 125 Southwest Street, but it now encompasses with 416 West Maple.
And it's boarded up. Do you know when it was originally boarded up?
The first week of May.
And what about the utilities?
The utilities for that building were terminated on August 1st, 2016.
And they were owned by the same people that owned Maple 400?
That's correct.
Did you ever have to go back and resecure this building?
Yes, sir, I did on a couple of occasions.
And did you ever notify the owners that they resecured? Or would it be covered by the original board?
It would have been covered by the original board-up order and then subsequently covered by the second board-up order issued.
Okay. Next one. It's 2 different buildings?
That's correct.
And start with the one on the left. Do you know when it was boarded up?
That one was boarded up the first week of May 2017.
And what about the utilities?
The utilities for that building were terminated July 7th, July 8th, 2016.
Building next to it?
Building next to it was boarded up at the same time period, first week of May 2017, and utilities are terminated August 2nd of 2016.
And they've been vacant since then?
That's correct.
Did you have to issue orders to resecure the property?
No, these buildings have not been unsecured since they were initially boarded.
Next one. All one building?
Yes, sir. This is front and back of what's formerly, as you can see, 126 South Duck Street. And for the purposes, that's labeled as Building 10.
And like you said, you identified it as Duck Street, the front door and the picture on the left faces Duck.
That's correct.
And when was it boarded up?
This one was boarded up in September of 2017.
And what about the utilities?
Utilities were discontinued in May of 2016.
Did you have to issue resecured orders to reboard it?
Yes, this year, January of this year, order was issued.
So somebody had been getting in there.
Yes.
Did you find anything inside this building?
Just evidence that somebody had been staying in there, but just a mattress on the ground, nothing.
Okay. Next one. What is that?
Building 11 is a quadplex that was formerly located at 123 Southwest Street.
And when was it boarded up?
This was boarded up in May of 2017.
And what about the utilities?
The utilities were discontinued between May of 2016 and June of 2017.
Any indications in this building that anybody been getting in?
The first door that you can see here, that the red door it doesn't have, there was evidence that somebody had kicked it in at one point.
So it was found insecure.
That's correct.
And did you contact anyone to have it resecured, or did you just do it?
At that point, I believe I contacted the local property guy, and he came and just put a screw in it to secure it.
Next one. Identify that.
Building 12 is it was a garage that was converted into a studio apartment.
And do you know when it was boarded up?
This one was boarded up, would have been September of 2017.
And what about the utilities?
Utilities were discontinued in August 2016.
And in the photo that's there, there's a black spot in what appears to be the front door. Is that a hole in the wood?
Yes, it is.
It looked like somebody had been getting in there.
Yes, it did.
Were there also thefts at this one?
Did not observe any thefts. It did observe where it looked like somebody had been squatting in there to get out of the weather.
Next one. All one building?
Yes, sir.
And what is it?
This is 122 South Duck Street. It was formerly a single resident converted into a duplex top and bottom with the top floor unfinished.
And do you know when it was boarded up?
This one would have been boarded up in September of 2017.
And what about the utilities?
Utilities were discontinued in this one in August 2016.
As indicated in the picture on the bottom right, is that a hole in the roof as well?
Yes, it is.
And was it closed up at any time that you know of?
No.
And it's still open?
Yes.
Next one. What is it?
Building 14 is former 116 South Duck Street, which is also a single family that was converted into a duplex top and bottom.
And when was it boarded up?
This would have been boarded up in September of 2017.
And what about the utilities?
Utilities were discontinued at this property. Appears to be April 19th of 2017.
Any indication that anybody had been getting in there?
At one point, we did find the board secure and the back door unsecured, and contact local property, and he went and secured it.
Next one.
This is building 15, a former 106 South Duck Street, which is also a duplex top and bottom.
And when was it boarded up?
It was boarded up in September 2017.
What about the utilities?
Utilities for this one were discontinued in May of 2017.
Did you have to issue any board-up orders to resecure this building?
No, sir, not this one.
Next one. And what is it?
This is 401 West West Elm Street.
And single family, multifamily?
Multifamily, as near as I could tell, it was another quad.
And when was it boarded up?
September 2017.
What about the utilities?
Utilities were discontinued in this building between May of 2016 and August 2016.
And any indication, did you have to resecure this building at all?
No, I did not.
You didn't have to notify the owner either?
No.
Next one.
And then this is the former 407 West Elm, which is a single-family residence.
And when was it boarded up?
September of 2017,
And utilities?
April of 2017.
Any indication that anybody been getting in there?
Not that I have seen, no.
Did you have to resecure the building?
No.
Next one.
That
That's it.
That's it.
From the time that these were boarded up or the utilities terminated, do you have any indication that anybody was staying in there lawfully in any of these buildings?
Not lawfully, no.
Just the ones that you identified that people have been staying transients?
That's correct.
And there was also concerns because of the vacancy of all structures that may have been a harborage for vermin.
Yes, sir. There's some of the neighbors, when they complained about tall grass, would say they'd seen rodents and snakes.
And not just at one building, just generally?
Just on the general area.
I don't believe I have any further questions unless the council has any questions for Mr. Moore.
Councilors, any questions?
Invite Mr.
Thank you.
Ruby if you'd like to ask him any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Moore. I assume this is working. I can't.
Marginally, maybe.
I'll come over here. How's that? If it goes off, I apologize. Mr. Moore, just in your dealings, obviously we have some gentlemen here from Athens today, and I'll offer them for questions of the council if they would like. But my one question is, in dealing with them, have they ever been anything but accommodating and responsive to your requests?
They've been, they accommodated several times, several different ones, until the beginning of the year with the final board-up order that was issued.
Okay, and when you contacted them about that, were they responsive?
I didn't receive any response at the beginning, and then I did have one conversation with Mr. Moore
Okay,
after we had posted the notice for the hearing, and then I referred him to city attorney.
okay. Thank you very much. No further questions.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Ruby, any further comments on the matter?
Just briefly, and again, for the council, Steve Ruby on behalf of Barrett Investment Properties, I would introduce the council to John Barrett, Travis Moore, and Brandon Barrett, who are all here on behalf of the company from Athens, Georgia. And I would advise the council that this proceeding is extremely important to them. They have come all the way from Georgia, as they should. And I would certainly advise the council that any questions that they would have personally of them, they're happy to answer. The one thing I would say, in response to the final board up, and I'm happy to provide this letter to the council if it would be helpful. But in response to that, John Barrett did send a letter to Mr. McGrath suggesting that demolition would be completed within 180 days. And that letter was dated May 1, 2019. This is something that is acknowledged by the company. I don't dispute on behalf of the company any of the evidence that was presented, so that's not what I'm here to do. What I am here to talk about is, an order that would be entered by the council that would be reasonable in accommodating the opportunity to actually do the job of demolition on behalf of the company and work with the city council in a manner that would be pleasing to the council, to the city, and permit the company to do the job. So I'm certainly happy to entertain any questions you would have, though, to the extent it would be helpful.
Councilors?
Is there currently a timeline on demolition?
I would represent to the council that my clients have met with 4 separate companies, all of which have stated that demolition certainly could be started within 90 days. And so that's, a specific step-by-step timeline, no.
Yeah.
But there has been communication that would suggest that demolition process could be started within 90 days.
And how long is it, it's hot, how long is it estimated that demolition would take once it's initiated?
Well, lots of variables.
Sure.
I think that's why I start with started as opposed to completed.
Okay.
I think there are several aspects, including potential asbestos abatement. Something as simple as weather. All of those things. It's just like a normal construction job that can vary. So the thing that I would, point the council to is, when are we going to start, and how is diligence towards the ultimate goal obtained, basically.
Vice Mayor?
Go ahead.
Mr. Ruby, just to be clear, your clients don't have any objection to a declaration of dilapidation under the statute
No, no.
or
no.
of abandonment?
No objection to the declaration. But again, we would request that an order reflect, the potential for a stay of execution for any potential action that could be taken as a result of that order. And, with specific timelines. And I think, from my perspective, I think the most important thing is that the language of the order be able to be accountable on both sides. And so those steps can be met. The other thing I would request is that to the extent that the job is completed, if the terms of the stay are met and the job is completed in a timely fashion, that any consequence and the order itself be dismissed upon completion.
Okay. I would just say, more directed to your clients,
Sure.
Hearing the evidence on these buildings have been abandoned basically for 3 years and boarded up for almost 2. I know, speak for myself, and I'm probably speaking for the rest of the council, there is not a property in town that I hear more about than this property on Duck Street. It's right in the middle of our town. I know you all don't live here, and you probably don't hear about this as much as we do, but it is an eyesore in the middle of town, and when visitors come to the university, it's one of the first things they see. So while I'm all for trying to work together and be accommodating, we also just need this to get done. It is a problem, and it is something, like I said, our constituents are vocal and loud and clear that we need to get something done here. So I certainly appreciate you being here. I appreciate your cooperation in the process to this point. But we do need to find something that we can, be sure that this will happen in a timely fashion. So.
And I know I speak on their behalf when I say they welcome the opportunity,
Sure.
frankly.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, council. At this point, I think we have at least a couple possible motions to start with on the subject of dilapidation and abandonment, correct?
Yes, you'll need to make separate determinations on dilapidation and abandonment. You actually have to show that it's dilapidated before you can vote for it to be abandoned. So if you could take care of those 2 motions, and then when we get to the third one, then fashion the remedy that you want to accord in this particular instance.
Okay,
I should have probably asked this question before. May I ask this?
please.
I am concerned about the timeline, and I think 180 days is excessive to me, and even 90 days is excessive to start. I also would like to hear what completed means, as far as what the property would look like when it's completely cleared, and what does that mean in terms of maintenance after that, until the property is sold. I don't know if that's what we're dealing with tonight, but.
Well,
doing
yeah, I
that.
think so. I mean, we'll need to put, when we make an order, well, I'll tell you what, let's start with the motions on
Okay.
dilapidation and abandonment, and then we'll
Okay.
get into the specifics of what an order might look like.
Okay.
Council, is there a motion regarding dilapidation under the statute?
Yes, I move that the city council declare that the structures on the property located at 416 West Maple, Stillwater, Oklahoma are dilapidated under 11 OS 22-112.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Please vote. With a vote of 5-0, that motion is approved. Is there a motion regarding abandonment?
I'll make a motion to say that the property is abandoned under 11 OS 22-112.4.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Please vote. No, that's me. I didn't vote. With a vote of 5-0, that motion's approved. All right, council. So at this point, we can, based on the findings that it's dilapidated and abandoned, can enter an order that will, at some level and with some specificity, decide how that gets done, or give the owner of the property some time to move forward on that. So this is somewhat open to discussion. I mean, I think there's 2 major options to talk about. One is, some deadline around starting, which I would assume would include things like, well, we have, including getting necessary permits and commencing with actual demolition, and having some deadline to say, we would like to see that happen by some date, and then a completion date. And I think there is some, certainly, as Mr. Ruby stated, I mean, there are factors that could affect that once it gets started. But my concern, at least personally, is that we're seeing diligent progress, and I don't want to get 60 days or 90 days out and have not made any progress on the property. So my suggestion would be that we set a date 45 to 60 days out that says, permits need to be acquired. There needs to be substantial evidence that this has started, that the process is underway, and then what I think a 90-day date for at least we expect it to be completed, or expect you to be back here to explain why it's not and when it will be. So we're not waiting forever. I mean, I think, the 90-day window may be short to actually get it all done, but we would at least want to hear back from Mr. Ruby or from your clients to say, where are we in the process and what's going on. So, but I'm willing to entertain.
I tend to agree with you. I think doing this type of work and my outside of council work, I mean, in order to get the demolition permits and in order to comply with the demolition, the folks that are going to do the demolition, they will have to do some surveying of the properties for different building materials that may need to come out prior to demolition. In my experience, just getting those surveys and things done could take maybe 6 weeks in order to just get to the point of if those materials need to come out before demolition. So I would very much like to see progress on that front. Those things all need to happen in order for demolition to take place, and I think that's the progress and the start that I would like to see. I think it might be challenging to put a start in terms of actual, yellow iron on the property, demolishing the buildings, because we may not know exactly what needs to come out prior to that. So I would like to see it started from that perspective, maybe get those, I like the language that we have in there, necessary permits, and surveys or studies, whatever we need to put in there from, in order to get to the point of demolition as a start.
Do you have a recommendation on how long you think that it's reasonable to allow for that?
So I actually talked to some folks today, just from an industry perspective. I think, if you called somebody tomorrow and said, can you go out and do the surveys, and actually get to the point of having permission from the Department of Labor if there were things that needed to be removed, they said 6 weeks. You called them tomorrow and had access to the property tomorrow. So that's what, 45 days?
45 days to get the permits.
To not necessarily initiate the demolition, but to have all the permits and the paperwork in order
to be ready. And then I think, demolition could include abatement of certain materials prior to actually knocking down the structures. There's certain things that need to come out. It's not safe unless they come out first.
So 6 weeks would be July 1st. What's our council schedule?
Meet that second.
I don't think we have a meeting that week. I think we meet the 8th.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
July 8th?
Yep.
I mean, I would think at that point, they would be able to have all that information, and they would very definitely be able to supply, or I would expect them to be able to supply a schedule.
A timeline for the demolition.
For demolition.
When's the first home football game?
That I don't know.
Well, school starts
1st of
in
September,
August.
yeah.
I just hate to have this be here another school semester.
I agree. I think setting, and I mean, there are certain dominoes that have to fall for it to be done within,
Yeah.
I mean,
I respect that and
Yeah.
understand, and I just, don't want to see this dragged out.
I agree. So is there a way, can we set that 45? I mean, I'll tell you just from that's kind of a hustle. That's 6 weeks, that's a hustle. That's not a
Well,
conservative, can we
it's-
set that?
It's a hustle, but it's also, I mean, we're talking about starting today, and I don't think this process just started today,
No, I agree.
nor
I
should it
agree.
have. So I think 45 days should be more than enough to get to the point where we're ready to start tearing stuff down. So obtaining necessary permits and surveys within 45 days, so by July 8th.
Okay.
And then I would like to set a date, probably our second or third meeting in August. I don't know when our August meeting dates are, but sometime
5,
before
19, and 26.
the 26th of August
Yes.
as a goal completion date for this thing to be done. And if not, we would want to hear why and where it is. And you know, that's probably a hustle too, and I recognize that. But again, I want to make sure we're staying on top of it and we're not, you know, kind of letting it drag out. So
I think for all the reasons that we saw in the slides, I mean, it is very important that we keep that push on this. I mean, we certainly don't want people in those properties risking, you know, health and hazard and all of those things. I mean, it's very, very important that we are diligent in making sure this happens. I just want to make sure that we are managing expectations and, you know.
Well, that would be
making sure.
that would be a question I would have. I mean, we're talking about, what was it, 16 or 17 buildings on the property. Once the actual demolition of the buildings occurs, how long can we reasonably expect that to take? I mean, I have no.
I mean, I think
No
if there
idea of
wasn't
time.
any of the building, and we don't know, I don't know that there's been a survey done of the properties for the building materials that might need to come out, just the age of those structures, they are of an era of construction that may have those issues. I think if they didn't have those building material issues, that the 90-day window was really reasonable. I just don't know what the building material component might add.
Yeah.
So if we decided August 26th as a completion date, but by July 8th, they'd have the survey results and what was happening, we'd know of a more realistic
I think
time frame
they
at that
would
point.
very definitely at
So
that
if we need to
point.
modify that, or then that's something, but I think I agree with the mayor that in looking at setting some definite timelines so that we know exactly and kind of keep up
agree.
with
So
it.
kind of a check-in on the
Yeah.
8th. and
But
then-
the 8th will give us a better idea from that point on what
Would it be?
would be reasonable.
Unreasonable to ask for updates between the 8th and the 26th?
no, I don't think
I
so.
mean, I would not want to hear on the 26th, we're not going to be done.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah.
Or the 25th.
So if I'm following correctly, you know, we have a definite agreed upon date for July 8th for permits, and that's kind of a 45-day date. I mean, to me, you know, speaking on behalf of the property owner, I don't mind coming before the council on that date and present. I mean, you're talking about, you know, in between those dates. You know, I think the ultimate goal is to get the property down as quickly as possible. And if in 45 days we have a legitimate reason that that's not going to happen by a
Yeah.
particular date, I think it's reasonable for us to present that, that
Sure.
day,
Sure.
either formally or informally, and provide you with that information at that time. Let's not wait until we're approaching the proposed completion date, because that's not where any of us want to be. I mean, the ultimate goal for everybody involved, including the property owner, is to get this torn down. But you guys acknowledge, all of you acknowledge the challenge that it can only go down as fast as it can go down. And as long as the diligence is there, I think that's what everybody is after, and I think that can be accommodated by the property owner
Yeah.
And
voluntarily. So-
they could have information that maybe they'd be able to verbally pass on through council or something regarding, you know, the surveys could be done within probably a couple of weeks, in my experience. And so they might have, and that's kind of the crux of it. If those surveys come back with, you know, things that need
Issues.
to be managed,
Right.
then we'll kind of know we're looking at a little longer process for them. If they come back with not a lot of issues, then we'll know that, you know, this might be able to go much quicker than we, or, you know, at the pace we would all like to see it happen.
Yeah. So, sort of a no later than July 8 date for an initial update on where we are with permits, all that kind of stuff, expecting that they're done by then. And then, I don't know if we put in the order some kind of regular update. We would just expect regular updates
And
prior
to the extent that the update can be made.
Sure.
By
I think that's fine.
communication with council.
Yep.
I don't have to come and take your time. You guys have a lot of issues.
Okay.
But I'm happy to
But
be
I do
here.
want to put the dates in the order so that we
Yeah.
have the structure
So we have
in
something.
place in case we need it.
Absolutely.
I
Yep.
expect
That's
that this will
agreeable.
be done cooperatively, but we
Yes.
want to have some framework just in case. Do we need anything in the order, Mr. Dorman? I would assume that all of the standard requirements around keeping the structure secured, keeping the lawns mowed, all of that stuff stays in place
Yes,
in the pendency of this? So-
statutorily, it's in place.
Okay, so that stuff
Okay.
needs to continue while we're waiting for the actual demolition to begin.
Yes, sir.
We don't want it to just get worse in the meantime, so.
And though that statutorily, it would, the care of the property would continue after the buildings have been demolished.
Yes,
Yeah.
it's the same standards that they've always had.
Yeah, so once it's a vacant
Mowing.
lot, they still have the requirement to mow and to keep it tidy. Without separate order,
Yes.
yeah.
Will they be required to seed and things as they demolish the building, or how does that?
That's, Paula's telling me no. I don't, it's not in the property maintenance code, but as we move forward, we may want to look at that because that is, you know, part of that. If the abatement creates a new problem, we're going to want to address that on the front end. So,
I just didn't know from a stormwater perspective, if they're not required to, if they clear the ground to dirt, they're not required.
Paula Dennison, Assistant City Manager, what they will be required to do is make sure that there is no runoff from the property that could contaminate the water. So however they choose to do that, even just sodding around the perimeter and then making sure that where the curb cuts, driveway cuts and everything remain, that there's no ability for anything to escape the property. But there's no actual requirement that it be seed or sod
A
or
certain thing.
fencing or
Okay.
anything.
Well, I would assume it's not their intention to leave this as a vacant lot for very long. I would assume we're looking for some other thing to go there. All right. Further questions at this point, counselors? I can move from the chair, right?
you can move from the chair, yes, sir.
I'm going to make this motion just to make sure I have it clear in my head. But I'm going to move that the council adopt the findings of fact and conclusions of law set forth in the proposed order with regard to the structures at 416 West Maple, Stillwater, Oklahoma, that the city manager is hereby authorized to commence abatement proceedings and specifically removal of the structures as set forth in the said order, and that the owner, Barrett Investment Properties, LLC, is hereby granted until July 8th, 2019, to obtain all necessary permits and surveys to commence the removal process, and until August 26th, 2019, to remove the structures from the property located at 416 West Maple, Stillwater, Oklahoma, and to restore the lot in compliance with the applicable code provisions. Any extension of the deadlines would require city council approval.
Second.
All right. We have a motion and a second. Please vote. With a vote of 5-0, that motion is approved. Mr. Dorman, is there any other action necessary on this item?
No, sir, I will modify the order, the proposed order, to reflect the motion that you just made. And with that, I believe we are done for this evening.
Thank you, sir. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to adjourn the city council meeting. Please vote. With a vote of 5-0, we're now adjourned.